Mr. Monk. I'm the Director of Learning of English at Chobham Academy. And first I'd say congratulations for achieving the results and all your resilience and hard work to make it onto the A-level English course. I know it's been rather tricky in trying times, but I know that come September those enrolled into the course will be looking forward to really dive straight in and get learning this A-level English. It's a really truly exciting course. I've taught many different A-level courses, but for me this is the most holistic, the most well-rounded and most fun A-level course and that I've had the luxury of being able to teach over the years. A bit later on in the video I'm going to be talking you through the texts that we focus on and why we focus on them and the course breakdown. But firstly I want to just say that the step up from A-level is big. It requires a lot, but it's also quite exciting, and this course, the way we've developed it, allows you to look at texts from a much more psychological, philosophical or critical and analytical point of view. Secondly, there's a time and scope over the course. You'll see the way that it is broken down. For example, you dive straight in and you learn Othello. The teaching of Othello is actually done over 2 terms. This gives you the time and depth to really understand not just Shakespeare and his characters, but the much wider philosophical, sociological, economical background and context that's going to allow you to really flourish in this course. Also, the teaching approach is as rigorous. This is Chobham, that's what we expect, but also it allows, when you're on this A-level course, which I hope all of you will really try and take on board, it allows, the way we're teaching it, allows for a lot more discussion, a lot more critical analysis, but your own original opinions, and that is going to really serve you in really good stead when you go on to your tertiary years or your university years and whatever course you do. Being able to really draw upon a Freudian perspective or a Marxist perspective or a historical perspective or a Foucaultian perspective this course is really going to allow you to do that. Naturally, I would love you all to study English at university, and hopefully this course will fill you with that passion and the love of English that I know that I got from A-level, and I know that all of your teachers that will be teaching you will install in you, so then you will go on to your university years and hopefully study English, which would be the dream. I'm now going to talk you through the course breakdown, exactly what's expected, and maybe some pre-reading that you could do to get yourself as prepared for this course as possible.
Okay, kicking off in September, we start with the teaching of Shakespeare's Othello. This is a play that's full of depth, that is very apt considering the modern climate, and deals with many different themes with regards to revenge, envy, jealousy. But what is most interesting, that is interesting for you, is probably the step up to A-level, because straight away there is separate marks available for your understanding, your evaluation and your analysis of critical theorists relating to Othello. So this won't just be looking from a psychoanalytical point of view, it might be looking at it from post-colonial, it might be looking at it from a queer theory point of view or a feminist point of view. And it's your job to understand these theorists, evaluate these theorists, and even criticise these theorists. Moving on after that, we dive straight into A Streetcar Named Desire, another really vitally important play from 1950s America that deals with domestic violence, it deals with mental illness, and is a staple for most A-level courses. But that doesn't mean that you can't bring your own original thoughts and ideas to this play that everyone that I know really enjoys studying. So both texts together actually account for 30% of your final mark in a final exam. That's an open book exam, although you're not allowed annotations in it. Pre-reading that I would suggest is any in-depth biography of Shakespeare. I would recommend Peter Ackroyd, and any contextual reading that you can do around the writer Tennessee Williams and his play A Streetcar Named Desire. This will all be covered in the course, but any extra reading or understanding will help you frame more original or interesting ideas and perspectives around the text. Moving into the second component of the course, you have the absolute privilege of studying two of the most important texts written by female writers across the literary canon: Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and A Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Initially two quite disparate texts, but actually when you, through studying them and really truly understanding these quite different texts, both of them have really common threads and themes that tell us a lot more philosophical answers about the world and the world that we live in. You'll be comparing both texts, so I would recommend, if you have the time, to read them at your own leisure. Don't worry about the analysis yet, because that will all take place across the course. But they're hard texts. They're texts that have been studied for millennia in some cases, and they do require a good deep-seated understanding. So if you have time over the summer, I would definitely recommend a reading of Frankenstein and Margaret Atwood's A Handmaid's Tale, and start thinking about, okay, what comparisons have they got, what concepts are the same, what major themes or philosophical or sociological ideas, what is the author's intent here. This culminates in a 1 hour examination where you'll be comparing both texts. It's a choice of 2 questions, but you are assessed on AO1, AO2, AO3 and AO4. Now next we move on to the third component, which is the studying of poetry, both old and new. Now this is usually taught in conjunction with the teaching of your prose or your drama units. So it works really, really well. So you might have 2 lessons on Shakespeare or on Tennessee Williams, and then you might have 1 lesson or 2 lessons on poems of the decade, which is modern poetry, or it might be section B, which is your romantics. Now, the poems of the decade, you can buy the copies of the text, but they have narrowed down, because I think there's maybe 100 poems in there. They have narrowed those poems down. For a full list, please email me at r.monk@chobhamacademy.org.uk, and what I can do is send you the revised list of poems of the decade, so you're not looking at every poem on there. But I would suggest getting a copy. I would also suggest a look at and some research around a group of poets called the Romantics. Now, traditionally, this is always seen as maybe the hardest part of the course, because the Romantic poets, you might have looked at a couple of them in the past. I know that you would have looked at Wordsworth at GCSE, and you would have looked at William Blake, but they're quite hard and tricky to pin down exactly what they want or their intent. So it is really important that you do some pre-reading about the sublime, about the supernatural, about the whole romantic philosophy and concepts that they have regarding nature and the sublime. It is really interesting, it is really fun, and it will give you a grounding and understanding of the literary canon that is vital to all A-level courses. Now, what you also do is, this culminates in an examination. It is 30% of your marks. It's 2 hours 15 minutes, and that's 1 poem of the decade question, comparative, and then a romantics question, which doesn't specifically ask you to compare, but it asks you to maybe look at one romantic poem, and then allude to or suggest another romantic poem on there. Now, we've also, as a department, put together a revision pack of romantic poetry. So once you do dive into the course, because it is quite daunting suddenly looking at Keats and Wordsworth and then Blake, we've put together a whole pack for you that really, really hammers out exactly what each poem is trying to say. But we want more from you. We want you to understand and interpret poems, because that AO1 mark is so vitally important. So the final component of the course is actually a coursework element, which accounts for 20% of your mark. Now, it's dependent on which teacher you have, or if you have a personal preference, but essentially you can do the coursework element on any two texts that you would like to compare. We do teach Bloody Chamber, and we usually choose one that we think works well. That might be Gatsby, that might be The Life of Pi, but it's such an important moment in your A-level career, because what this is doing is asking you finally to write 3,000 words of a really academic essay that you've researched, that you've spent porn time over it, that you've analysed. And what this is really doing is setting you up for your career and life at university, because each semester or each term you will be asked to produce essays of this length, culminating in a dissertation. Now, don't need to worry, because 3,000 words initially sounds quite daunting, but we give you time to work with us and work together on producing first drafts, second drafts, and then final drafts to get this the best mark possible. So it's a really, really, really good process for you to firstly really understand what academic and essay writing really does truly look like, and it also helps you go into that exam really confident, because you've worked hard and you've got a mark. Maybe it's an A, maybe it's an A star, that is banked. 20% of that is put away, which is really, really, really fantastic.
That is the A-level English course. We can't wait to have you back in the classrooms. We can't wait to be back in the classrooms so we can start to roll out this A-level course. If you've got any questions or queries, please email me, r.monk@chobhamacademy.org.uk. I know that a lot of you have been working really hard on the transition unit that we put together. Please keep that coming in. It's vitally important that you are working on this, because it's helping you bridge that gap between GCSE and A-level. And welcome to Chobham.